Hundreds of bakers of local bread, popularly known as gurasa in Hausa, on Friday, staged a protest against rising price of flour in Kano State, northwest Nigeria. The protesters, mostly women, staged a protest at Yangurasa in the Dala local government area of the state. And speaking to journalists during the protest, the chairperson of the Kano State Gurasa Bakers Association, Fatima Awal, said more than half of the bakers have been sent out of business as a result of soaring prices of flour. According to her, they had been protesting against the rise in price of the commodity since when it reached 16,000 per bag, but now it is 43,000 per 50 kg bag. And now to some health matters. The National Bureau of Statistics has revealed the average daily cost of a healthy diet for one adult in October 2023 as 703 naira. Collaborating with the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and other federal ministries, the NBS aims to measure access to nutritious food. Regional disparities were evident, with the Southeast having the highest cost at 918 naira and the Northeast the lowest at 605 naira. The Statistician-General of the Federation and Chief Executive Officer of the NBS, Adeyemi Adeniran, made this announcement during the unveiling of the Cost of a Healthy Diet Indicator report in Abuja. The report fluctuated over the subsequent months, reaching 742 naira in November and 786 naira in December. And to talk about this, I'm joined live by the Chairman, Nutrition Society of Nigeria, Lagos Chapter, Collins Akanno. Good evening from here. Glad to have you join me. All right, Collins, if you can hear me, I'll just proceed with a question. If you can explain to us the significance of the National Bureau of Statistics cost of a healthy diet indicator in assessing nutrition in Nigeria.
Oh, yeah. So this is very significant that we have this metric. It's a crucial metric. I like to tell people, when we don't have data, without data, what we have is opinions, and opinions cannot efficiently reflect the realities of everyone. So this data, this metric, cost of healthy diet, is very important in, drafting policies or crafting targeted interventions to ameliorate the challenges people are currently facing as regards food insecurity. I would like to also say that when you're assessing these, concerned parties need to know there are triple A's that address the food security issue. First of all, you want to find out if the food we're talking about, these food items, are available. If they are available, are they accessible? Are there barriers to getting these foods that are supposed to be locally sourced? And also, if they are accessible, are they affordable for the masses to purchase? How is the buying power and all of that? Now, the disparities that you've mentioned earlier, when you check what you have obtainable in the north and in the south, yeah, these disparities occur because there are no equitable access to food. That's why we talk about food equity or nutrition equity, as it were. So it's important that we have a metric. This just helps us to be able to create advocacy campaigns around food insecurity in the country.
Now, how do you think, the cost of living impacts dietary choices, looking at the NBS report?
Yes, definitely. And so you can see the disparities here. Some regions have higher cost of a healthy diet. Some regions have a lower cost. Now, those areas that have a higher cost obviously would have cases of malnutrition, because for them to acquire these nutrient-dense foods, as it were, would be a difficult challenge, considering the rising inflation in the economy right now. So that definitely would have an impact.
What do you think could be the likely impact of changes in the prices of healthy diet over a sustained period of time on food security and also the public health in Nigeria?
It's a risk. It's a public health concern already. Like you mentioned, if it's sustained over a period of time, people are going to drift into food insecurity proper. Like, you would see an increasing case of malnutrition amongst adults In fact, looking at the cost of it for a day, this can barely even take care of a meal for an adult. It's definitely there's going to be a rising case of malnutrition. Let me just put it that way. Simple put, yeah.
So how do you think we can help, curb malnutrition by introducing, fruits and vegetables into our dietary plan, as a way of promoting, healthy living among people?
The work is cut out for the government and, of course, nutrition professionals. Nutrition Society of Nigeria is looking to champion advocacy campaigns regarding this. We also need to have policies around getting these foods across to people. Now, accessibility is a problem already. Affordability is another problem. Availability may not be a problem because, yes, we have foods available. People are already adopting home gardens to be able to at least cultivate vegetables in the house. But when they cannot access these foods, I mean, probably the transportation barrier, taking the foods to the market, the bad roads, nutrition equity has a lot of things that surrounds it. If people have the foods available, can they move it to the market to sell? Can they move it to places where they would, package or further process this food, making it available for people? Now, around what we can do, the government needs to have targeted interventions. And that's why it's important we have the cost of a healthy diet. That metric helps us policymakers to advocate for targeted interventions like I mentioned earlier. And of course, education is important. People need to know. It's one thing for someone to have the right information so that they can make the right move. If you're not aware, you would even make a mistake. People can say, oh, if it is 700 naira, let's use the metric already given. If it's 700 naira, you can still eat a poor diet even after spending so much. So if you're not aware of the health benefits of this food, I think it's already a disservice to you. So we are doing the work of the education and advocacy, but the government's work is still there to create policies that ameliorate this challenge.
And that's the most we can take this evening. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Collins Akanno. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Stakeholders in the pharmaceutical sector in Nigeria are calling for the creation of a 600 billion pharmaceutical manufacturing development fund at 5% interest. They said this will boost local manufacturing and reduce pressure on importation. They also want waivers on import duty for local manufacturers of pharma machinery, equipment and accessories to drive the growth of the industry. News Central's Adeshewa Odushoga reports.
Nigeria is an import-dependent country, and businesses here depend on the dollar to purchase goods from their foreign manufacturers. Now, dollars are scarce in the forex market. This is forcing the naira to lose value by more than 90%. It has become difficult for import-dependent businesses to thrive. One such business is the pharmaceutical industry, which is also import-dependent. There is an increase in the price of medicine in the market.
For some of us are privileged to work for a brand. There is some form of HMO that they subsidize. So with that we can leverage and we are able to to stay afloat. Most especially when after this there's this GSK company that they have hard time in Nigeria. And, their product is on the outside, and they have I think they produce most of the drugs that we can buy in pharmacy. And now I think they are pulling out. So all their drugs like Augmentin, they have skyrocketed.
As a result, stakeholders in the pharmaceutical sector in Nigeria had an engagement with the coordinating Minister of Health. The stakeholders called for special priority to access forex at rates that will moderate the final cost of medicines and other healthcare commodities.
The pharmaceutical industry is heavily import dependent, like you know. Put from the raw material to the packaging material to the finished products, all are imported. And therefore, this makes our industry highly at risk.
The minister attributed the global increase in the cost of pharmaceutical products to the shortage of active pharmaceutical ingredients globally. He also assured that the government will create a favorable environment for local manufacturers to thrive.
The President has directed an executive order to be developed, which will begin to reduce, which will lead to actions that will reduce the barriers to local manufacturing, will enable the industry to thrive. And we expect that to also, over time, reduce the cost of pharmaceuticals.
As part of their demand, stakeholders in the pharmaceutical industry are asking for the creation of 600 billion pharmaceutical manufacturing development fund at 5% interest over a minimum of 7 to 10-year tenure to support the local production of active pharmaceutical ingredient, vaccines, critical supply chain intervention, and research and development, among others. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshewa Odushoga.
An appeal has gone to the federal government of Nigeria to stop the Navy from destroying refining sites tagged illegal in Niger Delta. President of the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees, Ambali Olatunji, who made the call, said President Bola Tinubu should prevail on Nigerian Navy to stop destroying refining sites in the Niger Delta region. The union also called on the federal government to consider licensing more modular refineries that have the capacity to refine crude oil. On security, the union urged the federal government to allow the local government to implement community policing in protecting the lives and property of citizens within their jurisdiction. The Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Agency of the Lagos State Government organized a strategic engagement with distinguished traditional rulers within the state to escalate collective action to curb violence against women and girls in Nigeria. Bettina Unweli reports.
In Nigeria, traditional and religious leaders have been at the forefront of the abolishment of harmful practices, including the money wife practice in Ebonyi, southeast Nigeria, abolition of female genital mutilation in Osun, southwest Nigeria, and the pronouncement on deposing of leaders found to harbor perpetrators and hide cases of SGBV in Sokoto, northwest Nigeria. Studies reveal that traditional and religious leaders play a central role in addressing harmful gendered norms and practices and could act as gatekeepers to enact meaningful social shifts in addressing sexual and gender-based violence and eliminating harmful practices.
In my area, it's not that too rampant, but once in a while, when they brought those children or those adults to my attention, I called on my chiefs and would sit down and try to manage it.
My domain is actually really very porous. We have cases of such almost on a daily basis, but I never knew this kind of agencies exist that I would have channeled my concern to. In most cases, we usually call the divisional police station covering my kingdom, and I come to realize that most of the people that commit this kind of acts are always kind of the powerful in the society, or probably they have backup of the powerful people in the society, so they go scot-free in most cases.
The objectives of the session included deliberating on the role of traditional rulers in collectively shifting norms that perpetuate gender-based violence and identifying avenues for effective prevention, response, and sustained investment.
What we expect from traditional rulers is we want them to play that role, amongst which is protect the community, eliminate things that are bad. We have some of them cultural, some of our cultures are very good. But here comes the time when let's go over some of those cultures. The bad ones, let's take them off.
Traditional rulers are in a strong position to work with their communities to address the harmful cultural practices that perpetuate negative gender norms and harm women and girls' health and safety. Working with, rather than against, traditional leaders in Nigeria is crucial to ending violence against women and girls and promoting women's empowerment. In Lagos for News Central, Bettina Unwili.
Small-scale women farmers in Nigeria have called for the effective implementation of national gender policy on agriculture to help them boost production and ensure food security. They said the policy, which seeks to bridge to gender parity in assessing agricultural inputs, has not yielded significant results since its launch in 2019. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, reports.
Small-scale women farmers play a significant role in Nigeria's agricultural sector, making up about 70% of the workforce and producing about 60% of the food Nigerians eat. However, these women are confronted with the challenge of accessing the needed farm inputs when compared to their male counterparts. To bridge the gaps witnessed in the sector, the National Gender Policy on Agriculture was launched in 2019 to ensure equal opportunities and access to resources, services, and agricultural programs, regardless of gender. But many believe that the policy has not been effectively implemented.
The issue of just talking that women need this, need that, is not what we want. How many years have we been talking about that smallholder woman farmer needs this? The actual thing needed is what? Implementation. And this is what we want. We want to see that women are given what they need.
If you check the data and indices available, you see that with the fuel subsidy removal, with high inflation, food price crisis, that more Nigerians are struggling, people are getting poorer.
At this forum for stakeholders to assess the level of implementation and brainstorm on effective ways to implement the policy in the country, stakeholders say addressing gender disparity in the agricultural sector is key to tackling the high rate of poverty and food insecurity. They also urge states to ensure that these farmers are targeted, especially those living in rural communities.
With the implementation of the policy document, I have no doubt there will be positive outcomes in bridging gender gap, empowering women, and enhancing food security. I therefore call on all stakeholders in the agricultural sector to support the implementation of the policy, most importantly at the state level where these farmers are based.
Effective implementation of a policy can actually lead to closing the gender gap in agriculture and rural labor markets. It can contribute to our achieving food security. So that's what we are doing. So we all recognize that more needs to be done, and that's why we are organizing this forum to push for more to be done in terms of the policy.
With agriculture considered to be the main source of livelihood for rural dwellers, especially women, it is expected that recommendations from this forum will serve as a blueprint to integrate women farmers. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
The shipping industry in Nigeria is increasing its support for the global effort to combat climate change. It's doing this by moving towards decarbonization. Seafarers' voices and actions are key to ensuring a just energy transition to a zero-carbon future. Seafarers have always played a critical role in helping to protect the health of the ocean and the planet, and that role is increasingly becoming more important. Every day at sea, they help to enforce the International Maritime Organization's environment-related treaties by implementing rules on garbage, sewage, and air pollution prevention.
We have a situation whereby our owners, our ship owners, they tend to ridicule the indigenous seafarers, okay, believing much in these foreigners, right? But we have the other countries coming in now, like Saudi Arabia, taking seafarers from Nigeria to work within their coast.
The same seafarers
that you are rejecting, the same seafarers that you are passing derogatory comments on them. Now they are working in Saudi Arabia, earning hard currencies. So when you look at the same thing that happened in the medical line is actually happening in the seafaring line right now. Nigeria is losing, they are losing the seafarers.
Their workforce.
They are losing their workforce. There's a serious, there will be a time that the seafarers they will have shortage of them.
Find out more about seafarers seen as the ocean's unsung heroes and the most important component in the global shipping value chain. Watch Maritime Radar on Saturday at 7 p.m. with a repeat on Sunday at 1 p.m. on News Central TV. The news continues in Southern Africa, where a teenager from South Africa has taken a life after she failed matriculation examinations. Onthali Magale from Kestrop in Northwest Province was looking forward to studying engineering. However, she did poorly in the mathematics and physical science, the main subject she needed to study, the course of her choice. Northwest Police spokesperson Brigadier Sebata Mogwabone confirmed the incident and an investigation docket has been opened. According to statistics released by South African Depression and Anxiety Group in 2023, 9% of all teenage deaths is suicide, and the number keeps increasing. Earlier, spokesperson South African Depression and Anxiety Group Roshni Sitha shared her thoughts on the news.
Necessarily have numbers rising after the matric exams, just like we don't have numbers rising during Christmas, for example. What happens is that we talk about it a lot more, so it seems like there are a lot more suicides. Suicides are happening throughout the year. But what happens in the mind of a matriculant, and we have to remember, is that it's such a difficult time of the year. As parents, we don't speak to our kids from grade 1 about the importance of education. And so in grade 12, we put all this pressure on this child to actually succeed and make a success of themselves, because our future depends on their success. And so as a matriculant, all of that pressure is on them. And in their mind, they are thinking, if I don't do as well as I am supposed to, I am letting everyone down. There is no plan B. This is all that there is for me. And unfortunately, that's just not true. These youngsters need to understand that there is a plan B, there's a plan C, there's 10 different plans that you can think of.
Zambia's former president, Edgar Lungu, has asked citizens to call for an early election, accusing his successor, Hakainde Hichilema, of failing to run the economy. He also accused Hichilema of failing to manage the cholera outbreak, which has claimed the lives of nearly 600 people since last October. Meanwhile, Lungu announced a comeback to politics last October, prompting the government to withdraw his retirement benefit. In East Africa, Ethiopian lawmakers on Friday extended a state of emergency in the restive northern region of Amhara, where fierce fighting had erupted last year. Ethiopia's second most populous region was rocked for months in 2023 by clashes between the Ethiopian military and an ethnic Amhara militia known as Fano. The government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed imposed a 6-month state of emergency in August, giving the authorities sweeping powers to arrest people, impose curfews, and ban public gatherings. A resolution to extend the measure was approved by a majority in the House of People's Representatives on Friday, with only 2 votes opposed and 3 abstentions. Victims of a huge fire in Nairobi are being treated at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital after a truck laden with gas canisters exploded in a densely populated area in the Kenyan capital. Some of them who narrated the horrible experience said they had an explosion and stepped out only to see a big ball of fire in the air. A truck laden with gas canisters exploded in a densely populated area of the Kenyan capital, setting off a huge blaze that killed 3 people and injured 280. The blast occurred in the residential area in the southeast of Nairobi, ravaging many properties and vehicles and sending local residents running for their lives.
Unalipuka. Sasa wakati nimetoka nje, moto niliona ni moto, ni wingu la moto ulikuwa hapo nje. Baada hapo sasa nikaanza kutoroka. Kutoroka ndio moto ukatushikia kwa barabara. Wakati huo kuna ile mlipuko mkubwa ulikuwa umetokea juu paka moto ukakuwa juu ya hewa. Sasa hata ile moto ulituchoma ni ule uko juu ya hewa, si chini.
Kulingana na bila nasikia katika hiyo kampuni ya gas, nilisikia kuna ngali ilikuja na hiyo mitungi ya gas ikukuwa na leakage. Na wakati mwenye hiyo ngali alikuja start ngali akitaka kwenda, ndio niliona kulingana na pile najua nikaona moto imetokea.
Siwezi jua wenye walifariki, lakini kuna wanawajua kama wawili. Kuna rafiki yangu mmoja tunafanya kazi naye buchari. Bibi alifariki na mtoto wake hapo.
In the meantime, Kenyan emergency workers have doused the last of smoke as investigators inspected the scene where a truck laden with gas canisters exploded in a densely populated area of the capital, setting off a huge blaze that killed 3 people. Speaking to journalists at the site of the incident, the government spokesperson, Isaac Nwara, established that 280 other fellow Kenyans were injured by the fire. The fire occurred when a truck laden with gas canisters exploded in a densely populated area of Nairobi, setting off a huge blaze.
The government of Kenya wishes to confirm that yesterday, Thursday, 1st of February, at around 11:30 p.m., there was a huge explosion in this area where we are. One lorry of an unknown registration number that was loaded with gas cylinders exploded, igniting a huge ball of fire that spread widely, with one of the cylinders hitting a garment and textile oriental go down, burning it down completely. The inferno further damaged several vehicles and commercial properties, including many small and medium-sized businesses. Sadly, residential houses in the neighborhood also caught fire, with a good number of residents still inside as it was late at night.
South Sudan Inspector General of Police, General Atem Merul, has erected a newly appointed Director General of Civil Registry, Nationality, Passport and Immigration, Major General Majur, to start the production of East African passport within 3 months. In an address during the reception of the DG on Thursday in Juba, Atem stated that the President, Salva Kiir, being the chair of the East Africa Community, means that the country must step up on its immigration services and churn out the document. According to Atem, the Director General will be given directives by the Minister of Interior according to the orders of the President in order for printing to start. Fighting in Gaza raged on Friday, with scores reported killed overnight after mediator Qatar said Hamas had given its initial support for a hostage prisoner exchange deal that would pause its war with Israel. The health ministry in the Hamas-run territory said 112 people had been killed over the previous 24 hours, while the Hamas press office reported Israeli air and artillery bombardment around Han Yunis, southern Gaza's main city, and the focus of recent fightings. A Gaza City resident, Abil Al-Madhon, said leaflets calling on civilians to leave had again been dropped by Israeli aircraft over the Al-Shifa hospital compound, where she has sought refuge.
إلا المدرسة بتعلم أولادنا يعني بناتنا إيش عملتهم من الجرم؟ إيش عملتهم من الجرم؟ هذه هي المناطق الآمنة، يعني هل المدرسة هذه بتقاوم؟ هل المدرسة هذه كل الدول الأوروبية ودول وأمريكا كلها وفرنسا واقفين معاها، إحنا بدنا واحد من دول العالم بس، واحد عربي يستنكر اللي بيصير فينا، يستنكر بدناش يوقف معانا، يستنكر اللي بيصير فينا.
The Special Operation Forces of South Korea and the United States conduct the first joint Special Operations training of the year at the Rodrigues Training Center in Pocheon, Gyeonggi for 10 days from January 22nd to February 2nd. The training exercise was designed to master the joint operation procedures of the South Korean-U.S. Special Operation Forces, improve interoperability, and Special Forces members' individual combat skills. According to the South Korean Army, the exercise took place at Rodrigues Live Fire Complex in Pocheon, 51 kilometers northeast of Seoul, involving troops from the North Star Battalion under the Army Special War Command and the U.S. 1st Special Force Group.
이번 훈련은 한미 특전 대원들이 한 팀이 되어 실질적인 연합 특수작전 역량을 강화하는 계기가 되었습니다. 앞으로도 특전사다운 강한 훈련을 통해 적을 압도하는 능력과 태세를 갖추겠습니다.
이번 훈련을 통해 한미 양국 특수전 부대의 다양한 무기와 전투 수행 방법을 비교하고 체험할 수 있었습니다. 이런 경험을 바탕으로 언제 어떤 상황에서도 임무를 완수하는 강한 특전 대원이 되겠습니다.
Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak's 12-year jail sentence for corruption has been halved by the country's Pardons Board. Najib was jailed in 2022 over the embezzlement of Malaysia's state-owned wealth fund, One Malaysia Development Berhad. The board also reduced the fine imposed on him to 50 million ringgit from the original 210 million ringgit. Najib must pay this in full to secure his release in August 2028. If he fails to pay, his sentence will be extended for another year until 2029. He was convicted in 2020 after spending 2 years appealing his conviction before the court. The jailing of such a senior figure in Asian politics at that time caused major ripples across Southeast Asia. It was also held up as a rare example of accountability in a region where power is so often unaccountable. A small plane crashed into a mobile home park in the southeastern U.S. state of Florida, killing several people. Scott Hellers, the fire chief of the coastal town of Clearwater, told a press conference that the accident occurred at 7 p.m. shortly after a nearby airport received an alert about a plane in trouble. The firefighters extinguished the fires at Bayside Waters mobile home park caused by the crashed aircraft. According to the fire chief, at least 3 houses were damaged by fire, and a 4th was directly hit by a plane. He adds that residents of the other houses were unharmed. Local media reported that the Federal Aviation Administration revealed that the pilot of the plane had reported an engine failure before the accident. And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Court has okayed terrorism trial against Rivers governor's loyalists over assembly bombing. Ethiopia lawmakers have extended state of emergency in Amhara. We also told you that a teenager has committed suicide after failing a matric exam in South Africa. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.